Greetings, Acolytes of the Force, back to our archives. We've been expecting you. And today, we will be discussing one of the greatest travesties that occurred at the very beginning of the Clone Wars conflict, and why the Jedi were so severely under-equipped for the Geonosis battle that would soon occur. So Acolytes, sit back, grab a drink of Jawa juice, and let us begin by opening up yet another holocron. The first battle of Geonosis marked not only the beginning of the Clone Wars, but a seismic shift in the galactic balance, thrusting the Republic into a new age of history and laying the groundwork for the future of the Jedi Order. In this battle, 212 Jedi Knights from all corners of the galaxy joined the fray and fought to free Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Padme. But in the aftermath of the savagery, only around 30 of these Jedi survived. 182 Jedi Knights, the most talented peacekeeping force wielders in the galaxy, perished in a matter of mere hours, littering the arena with the bodies of the fallen keepers. So why exactly is this? Why were the Jedi so ineffective and so widely outmatched during this battle? And what eventually led them to being so thoroughly massacred? Well, stick with us, students of the Force, and let's explore. First, it's important to understand exactly why battle droids are generally effective in order to figure out exactly what happened during this Jedi massacre. Battle droids were designed with the intent of overwhelming through force of numbers, while their individual fighting power was stunted, meaning that the single droids are fairly easy to defeat. But this wasn't necessarily a downfall, as their inefficiency made them cheap and easy to produce en masse. This is one of the reasons why Order 66 was so effective, seeing as Palpatine designed the clones to be much better fighters than the droids. By doing this, he conditioned the Jedi to fight an easier enemy for years, so when the clone troopers finally attacked, they were overwhelmed with ease. That being one part of a ton of other factors that led to the downfall of the Jedi and the efficiency of Order 66, but this is a major component. This key point, however, proved to be the Jedi's primary downfall, that being sheer numbers in addition to the schematics of the battleground, and their mindset going into this Geonosian arena fight. So let's conduct an analysis and break down each of these factors, starting with how the droids themselves were able to overwhelm the Jedi by using the arena to their advantage. A Jedi in one-on-one conflict can easily handle a single battle droid, or even several at a time, but when the Separatists are able to churn out dozens or hundreds of droids throughout the course of a battle, while also being aided by Geonosian air support, this arena becomes an asset in favor of the Separatists. The arena's circular shape is one of the most important deciding factors, as even the most skilled Jedi Knights can't deflect attacks from all sides for very long, as eventually just one stray blaster bolt is enough to injure or kill even the most talented Jedi Knights. Not only were droids able to surround them on all sides, using tunnels surrounding the arena to enter the fray, but Geonosians have the ability to fly, meaning that Jedi were also being bombarded from the air in addition to the ground on all sides. This is why we see the survivors forming a circle at the end of the fight, covering each other's backs and allowing them to focus on one small area of fire in order to improve their odds of survival, a tactic that they did not initially adopt. We also know that many of the Jedi on this battlefield were vastly inexperienced and likely unprepared for this encounter. This is evident because we can see Barriss Offee and her master Luminara Unduli in the battle, and it has been confirmed that this is in fact Barriss herself. This is important because the Jedi sent mere Padawans to make up a significant portion of this armada, not expecting Dooku to betray them even further. And while these Padawans were trained, they were not nearly as experienced as either their masters or even more seasoned knights that the Order had to offer. And it's very likely that a majority of the Padawans present died in battle. In fact, this is confirmed, with the only two Padawans that survived this battle on Geonosis. The only two were Barriss Offee and Anakin Skywalker. This siege, combined with the Jedi's inherent arrogance, likely meant that they were largely unprepared for this fight or even expected a fight of this magnitude, as this was meant to be more of a show of power than an actual threat. There is reason to believe that the Jedi weren't actually anticipating combat at all, and they were simply there to posture against Dooku and the Separatists. The Jedi Knights had a reputation across the galaxy as being one of the most skilled peacekeeping forces in the universe, and they likely believed that this reputation was enough to scare Dooku into submission given what they knew about him at any given moment. Obi-Wan and Anakin had only just recently uncovered the droid factory on the planet, and the Separatist operation in general, being captured shortly thereafter. This would mean that the remaining Jedi had little to no foresight that Dooku had an army at his back, and even if the Jedi had a slight idea of this operation, there is nothing to suggest that they would have predicted it to be so large of one. Even if they suspected Dooku was creating a droid army, they would have no reason to believe that he already had hundreds at his ready. So far as they knew, they were going in to confront Dooku, Jango Fett, and a few dozen Geonosian foot soldiers, and the show of 200 Jedi Knights should have reasonably been enough to make even Dooku understand that he had lost, had it not been for the droid army hiding just beneath the stadium. No reasonable battlefield leader, let alone one of Dooku's experience, would elect to fight 200 Jedi Knights if it was only himself, a talented bounty hunter who would even later be killed in this very struggle, and a few Geonosians. And the Jedi knew this. In a sense, Dooku always believed that the Jedi were extremely arrogant, and he played on this masterfully. These 200 Jedi were there for show. They were used as a posturing mechanism rather than an actual threat. When the battle finally erupted, they were unable to truly defend themselves, and when Dooku called their bluff, the Jedi lost. This allowed the droids and the Geonosians to surround the Jedi on all sides, firing from all around them as well as from the air, and very few of the Jedi managed to survive. The ones that did survive were likely on the defense the entire time, as there was very little headway made in terms of eliminating the droid threat. In a sense, the Jedi could not win by eliminating all of the droids, whereas the Separatists very much could win by eliminating all of the Jedi, and this immediately gave the droids the advantage that they needed in order to overwhelm and slaughter the Jedi Knights. We also speak of this very often when concerning the power levels of various characters that endured the Clone Wars, and this is very much true. The Clone Wars fortified many Jedi into hard battle-stricken warriors, such as Anakin Skywalker and Ahsoka Tano, or even Obi-Wan Kenobi. All three of these characters growing massively in power because of the Clone Wars. The Jedi's very attire indicated a major reason why they lost on the Battle of Geonosis, as none of them at the time were wearing armor. This again strictly goes to the hubris of the Jedi. They believed that there was no force available that could ever threaten them, and even with Mace Windu knowing that Yoda was about to arrive with an entire clone battalion and clone forces at their back, Mace Windu made the rash decision to engage Dooku immediately. The Jedi were such a massive group that they were never used to being on the defensive. This shows by the fact that many of the Jedi sent unprepared soldiers to fight and die in the Geonosian arena. This is not to say though that all those that died on Geonosis were not skilled duelists, as very many notable duelists, including Coleman Trebor, died on Geonosis. The Jedi had been so used to their offensive positioning that they lost this battle because Dooku betted just on this. It's also important to note that in this battle, Dooku also had multiple kinds of battle droids on the field, not simply the B1 battle droids which are most commonly associated, and the B1 battle droids being the battle droids that most of these Jedi ever fought. Dooku also implemented the B2 or the super battle droid, which were far more effective soldiers, and the droidekas, who are famous for giving the Jedi a very difficult time. It was this mishmash of various enemies, and the Jedi not being battle tested and having to constantly switch their styles depending on the enemies that they were facing that caused their ultimate downfall. The Jedi in the first place were not prepared for the sheer numbers. They were not prepared for the quality of soldiers that the Separatists were able to produce. They were not prepared for the arena that the battle was set to take place in, and the Jedi themselves had not been tested by war. And again, Dooku knew all of this as a former Jedi himself. He highlighted all of the weaknesses that he had seen in the Jedi for generations, and he played on them perfectly, to the point where he killed nearly 200 Jedi, Padawans, Knights, and Masters alike. Dooku knew that the Jedi would be on the way because he himself was a former Jedi, and he believed that the Jedi never take an opportunity not to right one of their wrongs. He knew the Jedi would be arrogant. He knew they would come in force, but not enough force. And that is why the Battle of Geonosis was such an embarrassment for the Jedi Order. But anyway, my friends and acolytes of the Force, had you thought about this before this holocron? What are your thoughts on why the Battle of Geonosis was so embarrassing for the Jedi? And do you agree that Dooku played his cards perfectly, and that it was because Dooku knew the Jedi so well that he was able to hand them one of their heaviest defeats in decades? As always, my friends, thank you so much for watching and continuing to support the channel. As always, may the Force be with you, and have a great day.